started. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's ARP-AIRE Talking Circle. Thank you guys so much for joining. All right. We will go ahead and get started. All right. This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred. Okay, so today we'll start with the reminders and announcements. We'll talk a little bit about budget revisions, and then we'll have some discussion around program implementation, and then we will close with some upcoming events. And then today with us is your program officer, Bianca Williams.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope that we're all working on those budget revisions. I am working on reviewing them for those who have turned them in. And also look out if you received anything on monitoring. Information for that has been sent out. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me. I am here to help you as best I can. Thank you.
All right. Okay, and then I know I'm probably a new face for a lot of you. So my name is Casey Morgan. I am your OIE Technical Assistance Coach. You'll be seeing more of me, and I'm very excited to work with y'all. OCO, hello, welcome. I currently live in Dallas. My family is from Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma. Previously to here, I did a lot of Native American youth activism work in grad school. I did my thesis on restorative discipline practices and co-founded an organization called FIERCE, or Future Indigenous Educators Resisting Colonial Education. So very excited to be getting back into that space. I've been in the public education space in Dallas, Texas for the last several years as a curriculum developer, assistant principal, teacher, school founder, all the things. So very excited to be here with y'all and get back to the Native education space. So reminders and announcements. So your APR updates were due in December, December 21st. So if you have not submitted your APR update already or sent an email confirming that you do not have any updates, please email your APR updates or send that email confirming that you don't have any to oie@seiservices.com, and make sure you copy your program officer, Bianca, as well. If you are wondering if that's you, these are the APR updates that we still need currently. So if you see yourself on here and you think that you've submitted it or you think you've sent an email previously, please make sure to follow up after this meeting with your program officer and the OIE@SEI Services email. All right, and do we have any questions about that before we move on, the APR updates? All right, well, if you have any questions about APR updates or you need some assistance with that, you can always reach out to us via email as well. And then on more exciting news, we are doing the Office of Indian Education Student Artist Competition again this year. So this year, the theme is I Am the Future, and we're looking for entries for art, writing, and video. Students from early childhood through grade 12 can participate, so we would love for you to share the information with your networks. And we hope to get a lot of student entries in all of these areas. So for art, it can be a myriad of things: painting, drawing, printmaking, beading, photography, textiles, really any type of art that you can think of. And then for writing, we're really looking for a personal narrative essay on that theme. And then For the video, it doesn't have to be a really long, extravagant video. We're just looking for some type of personal performance piece that is no longer than 3 minutes. And then all of those entries should be submitted online by March 29th, 2023. And to submit those entries, students can submit using that tiny URL link there, or and if you have any questions, or if your people in your network that want to participate have any questions, they can reach out to sac@seiservices.com, and we'll put that information in the chat. Thank you guys. Okay, and just a little note about credit on materials to refresh our memories. Remember that you must include disclaimer language when publishing or disseminating any grant project materials. And so you'll see on this slide below that is the disclaimer language that you would need to include. So the contents of this, insert whatever it is, book, report, film, were developed under a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. However, those contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the U.S. Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. So make sure that we're using that on any materials that we are publishing or disseminating related to our grant projects. And then if you guys do want to use the department's official seal on your materials, you don't have to, but if you would like to, then you would reach out to the Office of Communications and Outreach for approval to use that seal. And then you'll see on this slide, we have that number and the email address as well, and we will share that in the chat too. So that's edpublications@ed.gov if you would like to use that seal on your materials. And then in other very exciting news, we have a theme for our project director meeting. And so that this year is going to be virtually June 6th through the 8th. And remember that project directors are required to attend. In the past, you've been able to invite up to 3 people. This year, we're very excited that you are able to invite your entire team. So we strongly encourage you to invite your entire team as well as your budget team so that they can be a part of the learning that day as well. And our theme for this year is what you see on the screen, rooted in sovereignty. And as part of our planning for this, we would really like to get some feedback from y'all in terms of these 3 questions. So I'll go through them one by one, and then when we're going through them, if you would like to provide feedback, feel free to come off mute and share verbally, or you can share in the chat as well. If you think of something after this discussion later on, you're always welcome to share with us via the email, the oie@seiservices.com email as well. And I'll put the question that we're on in the chat so that that's clear. So first, what topics would you like to see included in the PD meeting? So really think about what types of professional development do you think you or your team would find beneficial at this event? And I'll put that question in the chat as well. So if anyone has any thoughts about what topics they might want to see, please come off mute or throw your ideas in the chat.
Also, while everyone's thinking about that, I do want to note, while you guys are doing your budget revisions, please revise anything you have allocated for the project directors meeting for travel. You know, since it's virtual, you will not be needing those funds this fiscal year. So move that as needed.
Okay, if no one has any feedback on the first one, we'll go ahead and move to the second question. But remember, at any time, if you think of something, you can throw it in the chat while we're in the meeting, or you can share via email afterwards. So the second thing that we want some feedback on is there a program or a process that you are doing in your project that you would like to share with your fellow project directors? And I really want to encourage you to think about this as it doesn't have to be something that you're doing perfectly or that has always gone super well in your project. It could be something that was a challenge that you overcame. It could be something that a process or a part of your program that you're still developing or still improving, but that you feel like other grantees would benefit from hearing about. And you can share any ideas you have for that second question in the chat, or you can come off of mute. And then I see Donna, re-engagement strategies. Yes, thank you so much for that.
Well, and Donna, could you tell us a little bit more what you were maybe hoping to get in a re-engagement strategies for PD type piece?
Right, since that's one of the hot topics that we've had, just re-engaging our students, really on that native base. What are we doing with families? What are we doing with tribes? How are we using that community-based approach to get our students back in school, and how do we help our native families do that? So some of the strategies that have worked for us, that have been successful with getting our families in.
No, that's super helpful. Thank you.
So to recap, are you doing a program or process that you would like to share with your fellow project directors? So if anyone else has any ideas, Donna, I love what you shared. That's super helpful. I think, it's something that is always a struggle, and people are always looking for resources and ideas around re-engaging students and families. So thank you.
So may I go ahead and ask then, what are some examples of programs or processes that have been shared in the past? Is it just like some of the things that everyone has been sharing during these meetings, or give me a great example?
Yeah, so I'll chime in there because I think it might help to have a little more background on our project director meetings. So they are for all OIE discretionary grantees. So it's ARP-AIRE grantees, it's the NYCP and ACE, it's our PD grantees, our STEP grantees, our native language grantees. So it's really bringing together a more diverse array of programs so that it's not just the group that you're kind of accustomed to networking with in your talking circles. And so we will have some sessions that do kind of target one of the programs a little bit more than others. So like if we're presenting things on teacher preparation, that tends to lean a little more toward our PD grantees, although we often find some of the others are interested as well. And then some of the topics you'll find are a little more kind of across the board. So we had some sessions last year on kind of the secondary trauma piece and taking care of the caregiver that was really, I think, pretty applicable across all of our grant programs as folks who are working with youth. We'll bring in external organizations like that was an external organization that came in and presented about that. And then we'll also have grantee share. So for instance, one grantee did a great session last year on how they are engaging students in career and workforce training and how they've evaluated the outcomes of such. And so they were able to share that process. And then we also had opportunities where grantees did what I like to call a virtual site visit. And they were able to kind of provide a peek into what their program looks like on a daily basis, or at least some of their activities, which is always nice because it's so hard for grantees to be able to get out and visit one another. So we do have lots of different ways in which programs can share what they're doing, or that you may want to see people share what they're doing. And then we're also always open if any of you have new innovative ways to go about that or things you want to share. We're open to those too.
Absolutely. And thank you for asking that question. I think it's a great question. So with that context, if anyone has any other ideas, feel free to share. As always, you can share in the chat at any point in this meeting if you think of something else at a later time. And then our last thing that we wanted feedback around was speakers and organizations or fellow grantees that you would like to hear and learn from. You can really think outside of the box with this one. It doesn't necessarily have to be another grantee. It can be, they can be from a different grant program. It can be anyone that you know of in Indian country that's doing great work that you would love to hear from and learn from. Like Sarah said, we've brought in, outside organizations and things like that. So, and we do have a few keynote speakers, and then there will also be a lot of opportunities for breakout sessions as well. So either of those things, someone you feel like would make a great keynote speaker, or someone that would be great to learn from in a breakout session. And I'll put that question in the chat as well. So feel free to come off mute and share any speakers or organizations that you think would be really powerful to have, or put that in the chat.
I know some of you are doing neat things, as well as that you may be wondering things. This is your opportunity. We really want that project director meeting to be a valuable professional development opportunity for you and for your team. So even if you're not, having a brainstorm right this minute, if you get off and tonight something comes to you in a dream, or tomorrow over coffee, you have a lightning bolt, please send those in. I'm going to put our email address in there again. But like I said, we really want this to be a valuable opportunity for you. And the best way for it to be valuable is for you to tell us what you would like. And even if you think like, I just don't know if they could ever get someone, this person to present, or I have no idea who would talk about this topic, but I'd like to learn more. Let us do the hard part. You just give us the ideas.
Absolutely. And feel free to take these questions back to your teams as well, and ask your other team members, your budget staff, other people involved in your program, what their thoughts are as well. And you can send those in via email.
Can I add something really quick?
Yeah.
You might not want to think of a challenge maybe that you have come across, and maybe you worked on a solution to meet that challenge. So it doesn't always, I know sometimes we get shy and we think, oh, we're not doing this fabulous research-based work, but you really are. And so maybe taking something again that you've been challenged and are developing a solution and bring people along in the solution is a great way and a great aspect to share with others, because others might be going through the same thing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alani. Okay, so slightly less fun, but necessary business. Budget revisions. So budget revisions are due Thursday, January 26th, which I believe is next Thursday, right? Okay, cool. Yes, next Thursday. The days just run together sometimes. So for year 2 budget revisions, each grantee is required to submit one. So make sure that we're all working on a budget revision and submitting one by the deadline. And your budget revision should include both year 1 carryover and your year 2 grant award funds. And there is an optional budget revision form that we would like for you all to use as well. And we'll put that form in the chat so you can see it in just a second. And then also, so for this deadline, would a calendar invite for the due date be helpful? So you can chime in the chat, or you can come off mute if you have a preference. So I'm seeing some head nods. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Janelle. Okay. So it looks like a calendar invite would be helpful. And then if you look in the chat as well, there is that optional budget form that was put in there. So please make sure that you do download that while we are on here today, just in case, so you can find it easily. And so just a couple of reminders around budget revisions while y'all are working on those and thinking about that. So remember that carryover funds from year 1, those cannot be moved from their budget category. So wherever you had those funds, that they had to stay there. However, your grant award funds for year 2 can be moved from one category to another, obviously with approval. So when you're doing your budget revision, be really mindful about where your carryover is sitting and maybe what you need to do with those year 2 funds in terms of moving them around in categories. in a way that makes sense given your year one carryover as well. And then this is what the form looks like. So that form that we put in the chat, this is what you'll see. And then you can use this as you are revising your budget. Are there any questions about budget revisions? If you have any questions, you can come off mute or put them in the chat.
Could you just say that again as far as making budget changes? So the current budget that you have for a particular section, personnel, for example, would stay the same, but the carryover from that could be moved over to a different area.
So kind of opposite of what you're saying. So the carryover funds, wherever they were sitting, so those carryover funds from year one, wherever you had them, is where they have to stay. So if you had some money from that year one budget in personnel that wasn't used, that's now carryover, then that money has to stay in personnel. However, your funds for year two are the funds that can be moved around from categories. So if you have, let's say, for example, you have carryover in the personnel area, and then you have those year two funds in that area, you can move the year two funds from personnel to say another category, but you cannot move the year one carryover funds. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anyone else?
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have a question. I'm due to hiring issues. We actually have an interview coming up next week finally. And when I do my revisions, I'm going to combine a couple of positions into one. Instead of having somebody in for, 40 or 50 days a year, whatever I had originally, they're going to be here for a 32-hour week for the entire school year. And that way I can use up my funds and kind of combine the positions for cultural cultural traditional leader and a curriculum specialist and whatnot. Is that going to be all right?
Yeah, you just want to make sure you're going to add that justification in
Right.
the description column,
Right.
that's needed and best use for it. But when it's all, if there's any issues, we'll work on it. But, what's best needed and reasonable and necessary for the grant.
The big issue is trying to find two different people part-time. When I found somebody to do both jobs full-time or semi-full-time, I guess, 32-hour position, which should be more workable for us.
Yeah, we want to get the work done and services to students. So that's going to be the remedy. Let's get the revision in.
Okay, me, Rich.
Any other questions? Okay, and we did send out that budget revision calendar reminder to everyone with the form attached. So if you need the form or you're looking for that calendar invite, you should have that at this point.
Also, I want to say if there's any confusion you have on how much you have available, please reach out. I know sometimes it's a difficult maybe to get a hold of your fiscal officer. You're just not 100% sure of your carryover amount from year one. So if you are confused on your available balance in G5, let me know. I can email you a screenshot of the amount so we're all on the same page. I really do want to make sure that you guys are spending all of the funds you have available this fiscal year. Last year was a super slow start for most grants, and we want to show that we can spend the money that was allocated for these programs. So if there are any questions or concerns or, if you're worried about budget revisions, ask away. And yeah, let me know if you just don't know how much you have available. I do want to make sure that we're on the same page what we have to spend, but there was no budget reductions from year one. So if you know that funds were not spent in year one, you have carryover. If there was late hires or, contracts did not get started, you have carryover. So if you're not sure of that exact amount, please reach out to me, and I can give you that number before the budget revisions are due. So it's more accurate if needed.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, make sure those carryover numbers are accurate, and be aware that carryover is based on your G5 drawdowns, not your local spending too, as you're looking at that. Okay. So because there is quite a few programs that are going to have carryover, potentially quite a bit of carryover for year 2, we did want to have a little bit of a discussion around budget, so we can make sure that we're spending all of those funds. So the first thing is, what has been most helpful for you in expending those year grant funds? So what are some things that you've done to make sure that you are spending the money, or what are some changes maybe you've made in your programming to spend more of those grant funds? You can share anything related to that in the chat, or you can come off mute.
This is Dylan with the Allied Community of St. Paul Tribal Government. I think the largest impact for us has been to be able to fill positions. I think the gentleman that just spoke also sort of alluded to that. You know, post-COVID, we were really challenged across multiple grants to find professionals that could fill the roles that we needed. There seemed to be a significant pinch on hiring in general across the board, not just for our Department of Education programs. But within the last month and a half, and really the last 6 months, we put a concerted effort into identifying folks and hiring in the hiring process. And so for the first time in probably a year and a half, we are fully staffed as of Monday. So moving forward, and just to speak to the budgetary considerations for year 2, I think that puts us in a position to be confident that we can meet our objectives. And it is a very nice moment, because the last 2 years, I think, in COVID have been very challenging for everyone, and in particular as it relates to hiring. So for us, that's sort of a significant milestone.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, and congrats on reaching that milestone. It's very exciting. And yes, it does seems like staffing and personnel is a common theme in budget. And I do, want to point out too the idea around, if you do have like the 2 part-time positions and it makes more sense for the grant to consolidate or something like that, where you need to get creative around personnel, those are options as well. Yes, fully staffed is always good. All right, does anyone else have anything that they want to share around something that was helpful for them? Okay, we're going to move to question 2. So what key budget strategies are you continuing from year 1 into year 2? Or what is something maybe that you've figured out from year 1 that you're now going to do differently? You can come off of mute or share your thoughts in the chat. So it may be something that maybe you realized that you needed to move some funds from one category to another. Maybe you realized you needed to consolidate 2 part-time positions, or what is something that you learned, or something that went really well in year 1 that you're going to continue. Okay, well, if something strikes you at some point, you're like, you know what, this was something that really worked well for us. Things always hit you when you're not thinking about them. So if that happens at any point during this meeting, feel free to share on, anything that we presented for feedback or discussion today. And then the last one that we'd like to talk about is, what challenges, if any, are you having with those three things listed there. So whether that's spending down your grant funds, drawing down your grant funds, or receiving budget information from your fiscal office. What are some challenges maybe that you've had that would be helpful to think through as a group? You're welcome to come off mute or share in the chat.
You know, this is Dylan with the Allied Community of St. Paul Tribal Government. I'll give the generic answer, but this probably applies to most. You know, G5 can be a struggle at times. We've had personnel change for our CFO. And so the process around, you know, documenting and facilitating those changes has been challenging. Outside of that, though, we felt like, you know, drawdowns have been pretty straightforward. And I would add to that we appreciate the support that we get from the agency. That's been really helpful in mitigating some of those challenges.
Thank you for sharing, Dylan. It's good to hear that the support has been helpful, for sure. And then definitely those changes and navigating those changes in regards to budget. Is there, you know, anyone in the group that can share like some things that maybe have helped them mitigate that challenge? And then Flora, I see your comment in the chat, finding people to hire. Yes, absolutely. Hear y'all on the personnel for sure.
Kind of going back to Dylan's statement. Oh,
This is Scott with the Creek Tribe. Sorry, I'm having a lot of technical difficulties today with my internet. My landline is down. I'm just trying to stay in one spot to be on the phone where I'm getting a signal. One thing I found, though, that what we did the first year, since with COVID, there were so many issues with hiring personnel, is that my grant controller and I looked at what could we use our cultural resource coordinator, who we haven't hired yet, and we were able to revise our budget to put money toward cultural lecturettes or experiences or college trip, putting money aside for exposure to college or to vocational schools, and using that money in that way, which worked out really well because for the next 2 years, we'll have that money to use for with the cultural resource coordinator position.
Yes, I love that. It's definitely something to think about as y'all are looking at these year 2 budget revisions and those year 2 funds that you can still move around. If you do have too much money in personnel that maybe isn't going to get used in that space, how can you kind of use it in another way? It still impacts students in your program. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
well, and I was just going to ask, as we always talk about like drawing down your money and knowing how much has been expended in those local records. And many of you have shared some challenges with communication with the budget office or getting that information when you need it or how you need it, or you're having, staff turnover. Would it be helpful at a future talking circle if we let you know in advance, oh, we're going to have from this time to this time, kind of a little overview of the budget pieces specifically for kind of fiscal officers or budget contacts that you could invite your budget person or budget team to? Is that something that would be useful? Would that help the situation at all? If not, that's totally okay too, but just kind of brainstorming things that we might be able to do to help support in that area too.
Diane, I see you said yes emphatically. So
Janelle saying yes. Okay. Because yeah, we could, decide up front and let you know, like it's going to be this portion of the talking circle. So they don't even have to set aside the full hour and a half that you normally come. We can just set aside like a 30-minute 30-minute chunk. So you're not asking that much of their calendar.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. And that might help with kind of what Flora was saying too about that onboarding piece.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm seeing that would be helpful. And if there's any particular things you would want to make sure that we cover or drive home during that, feel free to share that as well, because we can make sure that we incorporate those things that you find to be hot topics or potentially bones of contention in your budget discussions, and make sure to address that during that little snippet. But that's something we could definitely do to help out.
All right. Any final thoughts on budget? I know it's everyone's favorite topic. Okay. All right. I guess we've tortured you long enough with budget considerations. So we will move on. Okay, so program implementation. So first of all, just what is happening in your project? We'd love for y'all to share, where you're at, what cool things are going on, any celebrations that you have. Definitely please take this time to brag about, some things that are going on in your program. And like Alani said earlier, it may not be something that you're like, I'm feeling super fabulous about this, I have it all figured out. It might just be something that you're like, hey, this challenge came up and this is how we solved it. Or we're starting this thing and we're really excited about it. We don't know exactly, how it's going to go or where it's going to progress from here, but we're excited about kind of where this is heading in our project. So.
I could do a little show and tell if you let me share my screen.
Yeah, I can, Sarah.
Yeah, I'll give you some privileges here, Craig. All right, should be good to go.
Let me see, do I have to stop?
Let's see here, share screen. You see that?
Yes.
This little video of our sort of sixth graders, I think they are by the looks of them, hard to say with all the masks and goggles and stuff on. They're just sixth or eighth graders. They made their toolboxes. It's their first project or their first finished project. Made some smaller things. Also, we have our first big project here. I believe it is, let's see, where's it at here? I know when I talk to people, this is a this is a woodshed that's portable here. It was built for the culture classes to store their firewood in. And someplace you have a finished picture of it here, I believe, somewhere in this mess. There's some more students working on there. That's a sixth grader there. Here they're putting that together. This is a basic carpentry class. This is their first major project. Took them entire semester, but keep in mind our previous shop classes are basically crafts classes. I'm trying to find it. They just sent me a picture today of them. They're picking up that shed with the fork truck and taking it behind the school. Here it is, the door on it and everything. Totally assembled, and it's portable. They can slip a forklift under here and take it up behind the building where it goes. Kind of moving our entire, we have like a wooden amphitheater out there for cultural activity outside. And they're moving that from behind the building over here behind the new middle school building. So it'll be kind of a hand. That's where that's going to go, so they can store their firewood. But those are the kind of projects we're going to make. You stop the share now. That's all I wanted to share with those things, to show that we actually got something accomplished. I'm pretty happy with that overall. And we're continuing the class, the same group of students who wrote that are continuing for the second semester in Carpentry 2. And we have another Carpentry 1 session starting first period in the morning, as long as our rotating middle school kids. So we're moving right along. Got a slow start, but it's picking up. This would be an example. If we make a portable bus shelter, it would look a lot like this without the door.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a ski trail back here. They talked to us about maybe building a shelter for them to use along the ski trail for a little warm-up place to get out of the wind. Although there's not much wind in the woods, but it's kind of brisk around here at times, and we've already got about 25 inches of snow this year already around here to enjoy, and 4 days of power in December, little tidbits like that. So we have those minor challenges, but we'll get through them all.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. That was so cool. I love seeing all the kids, and they're doing some very impressive work for sixth graders.
Well, this is actually the high school class here that built the shed.
That's,
But
that's impressive. That's
and
awesome.
they're
Yeah.
looking for, when those sixth graders, they have in seventh and eighth grade, they're gonna be a greater skill set that we have right now in high school. By the time they get high school, they'll be able to do some amazing things is our goal and our hope.
Absolutely.
As well as the freshmen and sophomores are. But it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
We appreciate the support we got from OAE.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can you guys hear me?
Yes, Luke.
Unfortunately, I had to step away. I missed what he showed from what we did. I caught the end of it. So the kids gave that to our cultural room, which was really cool. And then the kids that are continuing, that was a very like teacher heavy led activity where we demonstrated and they followed. The second semester now, those students that continue are going to continue to do projects like that, but it's going to be more student led where I'm supporting instead of giving most of the instructions. So they're pretty excited to do some of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love seeing all that. And yeah, and seeing how much, kids can do and lead is so cool. So thank you guys so much for sharing that. That made me smile. All right. Anyone else? Okay, well, if there's, oh, yeah.
Okay, I can share a little bit and just
Sure.
just on the cultural aspect. So we're from Wichita and affiliated tribes, and we're actually a continuation. We've been a part of the NIA and Wichita tribe with an NYCP grant, and so we utilized what our Communities and Schools of Mid-America, which is an integrated student support, just kind of working just all around the whole child. And with it through that NYCP grant, it's been so successful here in the district that we're at that, the Wichita tribe really wanted to extend that and keep our employees, our site staff here within the school. So some of the really cool things that they've been doing lately this week is we have one student support coordinator who utilizes her small tier group time with students to really work on social emotional and re-engaging our students and kind of with family around. We don't call it a medicine wheel because we're public school, so we call it a traditional wheel, but really going around those factors that are in that traditional wheel and how it makes it. We're warriors, right? So we're Anadarko warriors, and how that makes them, a warrior. So anything that she's working with that student on their goal, whether it's academic or attendance, how does this impact, how do we use our, our mind or our spiritual or our family? How do we use that to support? And then extend that learning to the, families as well to share. So that's been real helpful in getting kids excited about being here at school, showcasing because we have 39 tribes just represented in our school district, among these students. So, allowing them to kind of share with each other, what they're made of, and how, not all of our tribes have the same, traditions or cultural aspects or stories. Some of them are similar, some of them are different, so many different languages. And so it really has made our families excited. But, that's just one example, but they're always doing so many things throughout the day to really get those families kind of in and supporting in the community in order to keep these kids, back in school. But I really love it. If I'd have thought, I'd pulled up pictures of some of the kids and a lot of the different cultural lessons that they do each time. So they'll do something different. I think this week she really focused on some of the northeastern tribes or the northern tribes, and did an example with that. So, and the kids do some activities and learn a little bit.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing. It's really, really cool to hear that you guys are incorporating so much culture, especially in a public school space like that. Very, very important for those kids. How is that? I'm just curious, how is that structured like into y'all's day?
So their day is structured between, they provide some tier 1 support throughout the whole day. And so sometimes that means we're going to bring a native speaker in, and the district's very open to what we do, and they kind of trust us by now in who we can bring in. We also work with our local community, education departments, of course, especially with the Wichita tribe. We'll bring in their education departments, their prevention programs, and different things like that to bring in those cultural aspects or be that speaker. And so they allow us to do that. So that might be part of their day. And then they work closely with the teachers during the school day, because they are housed in the school. And so they work with the teachers to kind of work around the schedule to when they can bring those students together. If they're working academics, then they might bring those students together at a certain time. Attendance, they might bring those students together. Social emotional learning, they might bring those students together at certain times, and have those different, small group strategies with them throughout the day. They also allocate time during their day to do parent or well, we don't call it parent really, because it's family. We call it family check-ins. And so they'll allocate their time to do that each week, to check in with those families on how students are meeting the goals that we've helped those students create, and what they can do to help. If it's an attendance goal, we might, sometimes part of their day may be even, picking up that student. A lot of our students have a lot of barriers that keep them from attending school or making it to school on time, or if they're tardy, they just won't even come at all. And, we are rural, so there's, not a lot of options on those, other options. So that's kind of what their day looks like. They might also partner with after school programs that are happening, that are in place too, and they might partner with them and bring in some cultural activities, or at least make a connection for them. They are the resource person within that school to bring in those cultural activities. They may not always teach them, but they'll, whatever the school is looking for and needing. And so the district really relies on us to kind of provide those cultural and those community connections with the tribe. So we also utilize, a school needs assessment, identifying with the school what are their needs, and they have constant communication with their school leadership and how we can create a school support plan that shows, okay, if these are your needs, then here are some ways that we can work around meeting those needs in these tier 1 areas. But these are our students that we're going to work with, our native students that we're going to work with. And this is what we're going to do for them, to help them meet those goals and keep them in. So it's been very successful, and we love it, right? With the good staff.
It sounds like it just really sounds successful. And I think it sounds like you have a lot of partnerships. There's a lot of working together with different entities and things like that. And a lot of flexibility around meeting the kids' needs. So I think, those definitely are great elements of your program. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. And so while we know that you guys are all doing really awesome things in your programs, and we want to talk about those things and celebrate those things with you, we also know that there are some challenges that come with trying to implement a program. And so these are some just guiding questions that we have for you to think through as we discuss some challenges. So think about what components of your project have you not started? Is there something that you want to kind of talk through with your fellow grantees? And then some goals that you have for that you feel like you can achieve between now and March, and then what assistance you might need. So I'll throw the first one in the chat, but if there's a question on here that just really jumps out at you and you want to jump to that question and talk about that, or if you just want to share a challenge that you might like to think about with your fellow grantees, then feel free to share in that way as well. So what components of your project have you not begun, and what might be holding you back from implementing those pieces of your project? You can come off mute or share in the chat. And then while y'all are thinking about that, I saw Krista asked if it was possible to get a copy of the student support plan that was shared. I think Donna, I think you shared that. So you know, if you're willing to share, but
I can try to pull up a blank one or just a sample student one, just an example of that, and I can email it to you to share out.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Donna.
And I will say there's a lot to the student support plan too, because we do kind of like a needs assessment, a student needs assessment before that too, with a few of the risk factors, because that's, you know, we are looking to help, you know, break down some of those barriers that we have, or that we know, so we know kind of what's around. And we do the teacher referrals to work with these students too, and they have to meet a certain criteria, you know, to be in those goal areas, or for us to kind of, you know, work with them specifically.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for your willingness to share the resource. And then I see Krista threw her email in the chat. So if you'd like to email it directly to her, but I will also, we'd love it too. Okay, so with that being said, so if anyone has any thoughts on those first few questions, they kind of go together. What components of your project have you not begun, and what has held you back from starting them?
So I can share a little bit. This is Steve from St. Carlos.
Okay.
One of the things that we were pulling out for a big part of the program that we were projecting forward is a mobile literacy bus, a library. And so what's taken a while is those buses just aren't built in a day, right? So we've had some time. They actually finished it. We just received it here recently, and so now we're just putting the finishing touches on that. But I think that as soon as we're able to get the library books and everything in there, then a lot of the programs that we were planning on centralizing that particular, you know, the programs related to that are going to be surrounding that bus. And so I think a large part of that particular implementation challenge was just waiting for the bus to be constructed and getting it. So now that we have it, I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of progress in terms of the programs that we're planning on offering as it related to the bus itself. And so for us specifically, it was just waiting for that bus to be built, and the lead time on that they had given us originally was about 9 to 12 months. And so that has been one big challenge as far as implementation. But now that we have it, we're hoping that things will pick up, you know, pretty quickly after we get that retrofitted. So just some of our challenges.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your willingness and openness to share about that challenge. And I agree with Sarah. I think now we need a bus pick.
When we get it halfway done.
Deal. All right. Anyone else? Okay, so what I would like for us to do is I really want all of us to think about that third question. So what is at least one goal you can set to move you forward in one of your challenge areas by our talking circle in March? So I really want you guys to all think through that individually. And I would love if everyone could put in the chat one goal that they have that they feel like can be accomplished between now and March. And it can be a baby step. So I'll give y'all a couple minutes, like 2 minutes or so to think about that and throw something in the chat. If you prefer to come off mute and share, you can share that way too, but would love for everyone to share at least a a goal or a little stepping stone that they feel like they can get to by March.
Now we just need fun brainstorm music.
I know we do. And I thought about it because I was when I was a teacher, fun story. When I was a teacher, I had like a playlist for each class period, and the kids could add like school appropriate music requests to our playlist. So anytime they were working on something, especially in COVID, it was really helpful. Anytime when we were working on something and it was like that awkward silence, I would just play the next song on their playlist.
Perfect.
Right. I need to make a ORE playlist. So if anyone has suggestions. Otherwise, it'll just be like some light jazz in the background if I pick. those Spotify coffee house playlists.
We have used on some previous events the playlists from the Native American Music Awards. Those are usually pretty.
Oh, yeah,
pretty
that's a good idea.
We do have to occasionally watch because, it's just public music. So they're not always talking circle appropriate, but the majority are.
Right. Yeah. So Chris, I see you shared to complete our summer youth internship, decolonizing curricula. I would love to hear more about this decolonizing curricula if you don't mind sharing. That sounds exciting. And then get the balance of positions filled and a good start on our curriculum, being culturally supportive. Great. Seems like we have a few goals around curriculum. And then Chris, I think, did you come off mute?
I did. Yes, this summer we're concentrating on 4 major events, 4 historical events that shaped our current reservation. And the 4 are the Mullen Road, the railroad, the discovery of gold and silver, and the missionaries. And all 4 of those events impacted the loss of our land.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in the process of finalizing that curricula and getting it ready to implement beginning in June.
Wow, very exciting.
It is. It takes a lot of work.
Yes.
We started working on it in August because it's history or the story that's not told in our schools. So we want to make sure that our students have that knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. So important. Yeah, the district I was in, we had fought for, I think it took us 3 years to get some ethnic studies courses, and so you did a lot in less than a year there. But I love that. I'd love to see some of your work when y'all are done. And then let's see, finalized contract for project artist. Okay. Yeah, lots of curriculum. And Julie, I hear you. It seems like there's always some work yet to be done, no matter where you're at. So if you haven't shared your goal for March in the chat, if you could please add that in the chat at this time or come off mute. And then while y'all are, continuing to think through that, we would also like to hear about any assistance or resources that would help you accomplish your goal, implement your project, or spend your funds. So if there's anything you can think of in terms of assistance or resources that would be helpful, that that maybe we could help you with, or another grantee might have ideas around, feel free to throw, all of your assistance needs in the chat as well. I know earlier we talked about, setting aside a little bit of time in one of these for inviting your budget staff in to have those conversations. So, things like that. If you can think of some other things that might be helpful for your implementation. And then, of course, if you think of something outside of this meeting, or feel free to take these questions back to your program staff as well. And if anyone else has great ideas, you can always share them with us via the email. Okay, just a friendly reminder that there is a Padlet for you all, and there's some links, forms, templates, deadlines, and all of those things on this Padlet. So I just wanted to make sure we highlighted this during our time together, and we will put the link to the Padlet in the chat if you guys need that again. So there you go. So Sarah just put that Padlet link in the chat. So if you'd like to open it up and bookmark it, or something like that, so you can come back to it. And then, of course, you can always add things to it as well. So like the topics for upcoming talking circles, if there's ideas that you have around that, some things that you think might be beneficial, you can always throw those ideas on there too. Okay. And then, of course, if you need to contact us, you can contact us with that email. I think it was put in the chat. Yeah, it was put in the chat recently, but there's this email, oie@seiservices.com. So if you have ideas, if you have questions, you can always contact us at that email. And you can also schedule a coaching session with your TA team. So there's one-on-one support for 1-hour sessions. If you feel like you need some one-on-one support, feel free to visit this Calendly link and set that up. Thank you, Sarah. Chris, of course. Thank you all for the awesome work that you guys are doing on the ground. It's very appreciated. And, as a Native student myself, I love seeing all the things that your kids are doing, and all the ways that you guys are just changing your schools and programming for kids for the better. So thank you guys for all your work. Any questions? And they can be questions about anything. All right. Oh. Of course. Thank you, Donna. All right, and there is a poll that should pop up for you. It'll ask you a few questions. If you could please fill that poll out for us so that we can take your feedback and apply it to future sessions. And while y'all are filling out that poll, if you have any email list updates, we understand that staffing may change and things like that throughout your program year. So if you have anybody that you need to add, or any changes that you need to make for the email list, you can email those changes and additions to oie@seiservices.com. And make sure when you do email us for an email change or addition that you include the person's name, role, and email address. Okay. And then some reminders about upcoming events. Lots of recordings. So our talking circles, they're from 3 to 4:30 Eastern. And so the rest of the talking circles are on there. You have March 15th, May 17th, and August 16th. And then we do have office hours coming up from 1 to 2 Eastern time on January 26th. And those are the fourth Thursday of each month. They are optional, but if you'd like to pop in, if you have questions, if you'd just like to hear what questions others may have, feel free to join that. And then your year 2 budget revisions are due January 26th, which is next Thursday as well. So same day as office hours. And you should have that calendar invite for that due date. All right, thank you all so much for your participation. Get a little bit of your day back. And if you need to contact your program officer, us, or your discretionary group lead, all of those things are on here, and feel free to follow us on Twitter. Thank you all for your participation today, Wado.